Are you fascinated by Olympic athletes? Do you love watching the Olympics? So many people are enamored by them, and I find it fascinating to watch individuals who spend so much time, years of their life, to train themselves to excel in certain areas and to just watch them perform at such high levels of excellence. We find this with sports in general. People love watching sports. They get emotionally attached to it, deeply invested in it. Where does this come from? What is it that drives us to spend so much time watching other people performing? Well, I believe that the reason why is because there is a deep desire that lies within every single one of us to be able to excel and to perform at peak levels the way we see these professional athletes do. And so when we are watching an Olympic athlete perform in this unbelievable way, or when we are watching a professional a player, whether it's in football, basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, right? We are in some way living out our fantasy, our desire, our deep desire through them by watching them do it and getting emotionally invested in it and having comments on how they can be doing better and why they messed up this time. We are living out our dream without actually living out our dream, which of course is very unfortunate because we should be living out our dream, but it's really hard to. And so it's worth investigating what it is that makes Olympic athletes, who they are and how they are able to perform at such peak levels, and then ask ourselves how we can in fact be Olympic athletes and perform on peak levels. Because here's the key. The real key to an Olympic athlete is that they have the self-discipline over quite a long period of time to over the very main areas of our life. They take very, very disciplined focus on and commit themselves to that. Because without that, one cannot perform at a peak level. To get our bodies to actually perform the way they perform in the Olympics, we have to, number one, be very disciplined with our diet. And every single Olympic athlete is very disciplined with what they eat. They're also very disciplined with what they don't eat. They're also very careful about how much they eat. Not to eat too little, not to eat too much. Because all of this matters. It's quite significant. And so on one hand, you see a person who no longer has the freedom to eat whatever they want. At the same time, the result of this is unbelievable, which otherwise no other human being can really achieve. We find that when it comes to sleeping, they sleep a certain amount of hours. And if they have any impediments to their sleep, they figure that out so that they can be able to sleep the amount of time they need so that their body can get the rest it needs. Right? There's enormous discipline to their exercise regimen, right? Which is very focused in how much time they have to spend to actually make sure that their body is built in a way that it can perform based on the type of the type of sport that they're involved in. All of this is enormous discipline. But the amazing thing is that out of this discipline comes an expression, an ability which otherwise a human being simply cannot achieve. And isn't it interesting that God gives us, the Jewish people, a diet? It's called the kosher diet, right? God tells us work 6 days, rest the seventh day. The entirety of the Torah is God actually not just limiting our lives, controlling our lives. So many people complain like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to do this, right? Oh, it's such an impingement on my life. I just want to live and do what I want to do, right? But you know what God is doing? God is inviting us to actually be spiritual Olympic athletes. God says, do you want your spirit to be able to soar and be expressive far more powerfully than it normally would? Here's the regiment. It requires discipline, but that discipline creates the freedom. You ever fly a kite? How does that work? You have a person holding the string and letting it out more and more and more, and the kite flies higher and higher, right? Imagine the kite flying 400 feet up in the air, and suddenly the person who's holding the other end of the string decides to let go. In a single moment, that kite's going to start flying in a very erratic fashion, and slowly it's just going to fall right down and lose all of its elevation. This is true of life. We need to tether ourselves down in a disciplined manner, and that tethering ourselves down is what gives us the power to soar in the most magnificent way possible. This is what we see in Olympic athletes. When we see them performing, we're seeing a person who has demonstrated this level of discipline, which we all have. We just have to have the willingness to exercise it. And they exercise that discipline. And through that, have been able to achieve something that is very rare to see amongst human beings. And this actually is within the ability of every single one of us. And our deep spirit desires this. We yearn for it. Yet what are we doing? We're being spectators of other people who are on the playing field. And what we're being called upon to do is to no longer be a spectator in life, but to actually get onto the playing field and become the Olympic athlete ourselves. But you may say, I'm not athletic. We're not talking about athletics. We're talking about becoming the excellent, operating with excellence in your arena of life. And one thing we all have in common is the arena of life of our spirit, to make sure that our spirit truly has freedom. And when is our spirit free? When we tether ourselves down in a disciplined manner so that it enables our spirit to soar higher and higher. Become a spiritual Olympic athlete.